Chris, can you hear me?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, so I'll keep you unmuted just because when Jim calls in, if he doesn't hear anything, he gets a little nervous.
Okay. I'll have Joanne join shortly then.
Okay.
I'm taking this in the office. Don't tell anybody.
You're in the office?
Yep. Well, I came to get the mail.
Oh, got it.
And so I just figured I'd
Ugh,
do it
don't
here.
touch anything.
I'm hand sanitizing and mask and...
All right, good. Only because Jim keeps going in.
Yep. So has it started recording yet?
It has, but I cut it before I send it out to people.
Okay. Like, this is extremely overwhelming for me, all this Zoom stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got it down.
I think it's just that, like, in college I studied film, so, like, not that this is film, but it's the same, like, a lot of it is just the same concepts of, like, when you are in, like a TV studio, it's, like, again, way not the same, but some of the principles are the same, so I think it's just a little bit more natural.
So can you
for me.
see when listeners join as well?
Mm-hmm. So if you keep Teams open, I'll keep updating you as to how many people and if there's anybody, if people join through the internet and I can see their names, I can send you, like, if certain people are on that are important.
Sure. Yeah, I guess my next question is for the Tom Nutter thing. I guess the part that I missed about setting up our own Zooms, do we set them up through your email and password?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy to walk through it with you or whatever you want to do. I'm happy to set it up too if you need for now.
Yeah, I think the only question was we'll obviously learn about it today, is the question and answer thing, because we were looking to try that out for Tom's portion of it.
Okay. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I think it'll work as long as you have somebody who is able to be sitting in front of a computer and looking at it. All right. This is Jim.
Hello.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, how are you?
We are good.
Anyone else on here? Joanne?
Nope, she should be joining shortly. Katie is just updating me again on how Zoom works. I'm a little overwhelmed with it all, but we'll get through it.
We'll get through. Anything going on?
Not much. I was just telling Katie I took this call in the office because I had to come in to get the mail. A decent amount came in, so
some checks.
Some checks, some books for you. It looks like.
Oh.
I also
how many? Yeah, go ahead.
I also got the annual report in my own hand, so those obviously went out.
Oh, yeah. So you got an annual report?
Yep, you have one book here.
I have one, yeah. He sent it to my house. Let me see. Mm-hmm. Anyone else come on?
Nope, I'll let you know.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Good morning. Oops, we have somebody else. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Joanne, how are you?
I'm good, Griff, and yourself?
Very well. You
Joanne.
There you go.
Hello, Jim. How are you doing?
Okay. Believe it or not, I'm at my mother's food pantry, so I'm in between. That's why we're open from 11 to 1 today, and I think they were here at 10 o'clock looking for bags of goods. So that's why I asked if you could pitch in, and you were great in doing it. So I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I'm certainly,
Thank you.
I don't
Yeah.
know if I can step in and possibly take your place, Jim, but, you know, I'll do my best.
Joanne, I think staff would agree. You've already exceeded just by saying yes, you know? No problem. No, that's great. And
Very
you've been
good,
active
very
in this. Yeah. So much going on.
Yes, we certainly have.
So much.
I know there is.
Oh, my
there is.
God.
It's hard to keep
God.
track of everything. It sure is. Every
I know.
5 minutes, it seems there's something different.
I know. So what are they doing today now in the Senate that the majority leader wanted to do another package for the paycheck protection? And,
Yes, that's what we understand. But now they're apparently
right. Minority leader is saying, no, we got to do more than that if we're going to do a package.
Exactly.
So what does that mean? There's no package, nothing for, I don't know, for a while. It's just,
I know it. I think
can't keep up with it. Can't keep up with it.
No,
I know, can't keep up with this. I cannot
You
keep
can't.
up with this. Yeah.
No,
So-
I can't either. I can't either. The only thing to do is try to narrow down and really narrowly focus on a few things. That's the only way that you can
Yeah.
do it, I think.
Yep. So, but, well, we have a good attendance today calling in.
Yes, I saw that. There are lots of
Very good, yeah.
our mutual members are we've got, I think, about 40, including the trade associations. I think we have 40 or so mutual members, the New England Council and the Federal Home Loan Bank. So, that's really good, and that's one of the reasons why, we certainly appreciate, what you all do at the council. I mean, it's just a great way to be able to advocate for our members,
Yep, I agree. Give a kudo and a shout out to Griff Doherty. He's doing a good job.
Oh, of course.
Good
Well,
job.
he's very
he is.
responsive. He's very responsive.
Yeah. That's good to hear.
From the command center.
Yeah,
there.
not
with,
easy. Not easy.
Dueling conference calls. I know it.
I know. No, not easy.
So here in Brookline, the food pantry opened up a new location at one of our housing authority spots, and they've been packaging goods in bags and then handing them out to folks. Usually folks can kind of come in and shop, but that's the way they
Exactly. We're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing because of the virus. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we just got a call from Southwest Airlines. Now that they're not really flying that much, they have all these snacks and cans of juice and all that. So they're going to be sending them all over here to the food pantry, which is great.
Oh, that's great. No, that is great because especially for families with kids, I mean, they can have a little snack.
You got it. You got it.
Mm-hmm.
You got it. Yeah, you wouldn't believe the people are just banging on the door here. Apparently there was something on the food bank advertisement the other night on TV, and they said in Boston, here are a list of the food pantries that you can go to. This was one of them, and that's why we're seeing more than ever, and it's because I think the advertisement went out. But Yeah, a bag of goods goes a long way with these people. It's really amazing.
Oh, it does. It does. And one of the folks at our recent Housing Authority board meeting, one of the folks said that the issue with the food pantry is that if you want to donate, it's better to donate money because the food pantry can go to the Boston Food Bank and get much more for the dollar. So that's really important.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, we have them too as a backup. We got these gift certificates for Stop and Shop. Yeah, you're right. Interesting times. So, well, it's 11:30. The congressman should be coming on.
Very good. And I did get the list. Griff sent me the list of questions last night. It looks like we have
I saw them. Yeah,
a good variety. You know, not just financial services, but also transportation and infrastructure and oversight, which is great. So. Now, Griff, have you had other questions come through, or?
No.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yep. No additional questions. You were the last one, so.
Okay.
We were just waiting on the congressman.
Right.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to be sure I had, the most recent list, that's all. I was lucky enough to get out this morning and take a nice walk and then walk by the Stop and Shop on Harvard Street on my way back. And an hour later, it started to rain. So that's a small victory that I missed getting rained on.
I know. It's coming down pretty steady now. I think that's the thing you have to do if you're home now is get into a routine. Do something every day, whether it's walking, You got to get into a regimen, I think. So.
No, you do, because otherwise you glue yourself to your computer, which is not good on so many levels.
Absolutely.
Griff, we were talking about that the other night.
No, I agree.
I've also signed up for the next one next week with Senator Shaheen.
Shaheen is on Tuesday. Lori Trahan is Monday.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I think we're going to have John Larson on the 20th.
Oh, great.
So, yeah. New way of communicating.
Griff, do you know I'm assuming the congressman will also have staff calling in as well?
Yes, I've been working with them. I actually just reached out to them. So.
Oh, very good. Okay. I know that with Mr. Neal, I know there were staff on the call, and that was probably really helpful for them to get background. So I figured that was the case with Mr. Lynch, but just thought I'd check. Also, do you know if there's a message that comes up for participants dialing in saying the call will start momentarily or something like that?
Hi, this is Katie Dunford.
Hi, Katie.
Joanne's, hi. So Joey, they get a message that they're waiting to join the call, and they're waiting for the host. So they can't hear us right now.
Oh no, I know that. I just wasn't. I have
Okay.
one of my colleagues was dialing in, and she just checked in to be sure she had the right phone number. And of course, I told her yes,
sure.
you do. You know. So okay, so they do get a message waiting to join or something like that. Very good.
Yeah. And if they're in on the computer, they see our logo nice and big and green, so they know they're in the right place there, which is good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not at all.
Katie's on top of this, believe me.
Well,
She's
all this
very good.
I just learned how to learned how to use Zoom myself the past few days, so I'm hardly a techie person. So
I know.
Probably have pretty basic questions.
God.
No, I think everybody really has gone from zero to hero in the past couple of weeks here with all this. People are really diving right in, which is awesome. It's so great.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Katie, the congressman said he's getting hold music right now.
Okay. He should have that code that we talked about, and that should have allowed him to come in to speak. But do you mind asking him for his phone number, and I'll be able to move him to speak once we start?
Sure.
And so I don't know if we want to begin, and I can kind of do that, Jim, while you're welcoming folks,
Okay.
or if you want to wait, Griff. I don't know what you want to.
Is it possible for Jim to address everyone and just say we're waiting for the congressman to call in, and then we mute the
Yep,
lines again?
absolutely. Yep.
All right, why don't we do
That would be great.
Sure, let's do that. Okay, here we go, everybody. Jim?
Yep. Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. It's Jim Brett at New England Council. Hope that all of you and your loved ones, your colleagues, remain safe and healthy during these challenging times. The New England Council's Financial Service Committee is very pleased to be here with you today with our very good friend and my congressman, Stephen Lynch. Please know that we will continue to hold these types of events in the coming weeks to give our members the opportunity to hear from members of Congress when we're unable to connect with them in person. We're working with other members of the New England delegation to make arrangements for upcoming Capitol Hill reports. So please stay tuned for announcements very, very soon. On Monday next week, we'll be having a Capitol Hill report with Congresswoman Lori Trahan. And the next day, Tuesday, we will be having another Capitol Hill report with New Hampshire Senator Jean Shaheen. So we hope that you will be able to participate. Today, we'll be speaking with, again, our good friend, Congressman Stephen Lynch, who many of you know is serving his 10th term representing the Commonwealth's 8th Congressional District. Many of you know he serves on some very significant committees that affects so many of our members here. He serves on the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, Financial Services, and Transportation and Infrastructure. The Congressman is going to be providing us with an update on how the House Financial Service Committee is working to respond to the COVID-19 epidemic, the well-known CARES Act, and any future policy impacting the financial service industry. And then we'll be asking him some of the questions that many of you have already submitted. And it's going to be moderated today by a very good friend of mine, very active member of the New England Council, Joanne Sullivan from the Federal Home Loan Bank. And I want to thank her for her participation today and for all of the good work that she has done on behalf of her bank, but also for the New England Council. So I would note, because of the large number of participants in this virtual event, we're not able to take live questions, but believe me, we have some great submissions that have been submitted from our members. So with that, again, I want to thank all of you for taking time to join us today, but also very pleased to hand it over to, again, my neighbor, one of the great congressmen, Stephen Lynch.
Hey, Jim, it's Griffin. If everyone could just wait 1 second. We are just waiting for the congressman to call in. So thank you for everyone's patience. Sorry about this.
Okay.
Hello. Hello there.
Hello.
Hi,
Congressman.
Jim. Yeah, Jim, they had me on music hold. I've listened to music for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, I said all these glowing things about this staff director on the financial service, Griff Doherty. I'm gonna have to omit all those now. But
yeah.
I want to thank you. I spent the last 15 minutes talking about who you are, what you have done. And it's unfortunate you didn't hear any of it, but we are pleased to have you. As I said to them, you're not only a congressman, you're a great congressman. You're my neighbor. You are you are in the hot spot of being on some key committees, whether it's the financial service, the infrastructure. We are blessed to have you there with your input, and you're doing a great job, to say the least, through these challenging times. And what we asked of our Financial Service Committee members today was two things. One, hopefully to participate, and then two, have some good questions ready. And Joanne Sullivan of the Federal Home Loan is going to moderate the question portion. But I just want to say thank you to you, and maybe you can start off by saying an update on the CARES Act and any future policy that's going to be impacting the Financial Service Committee. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Congressman.
Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Thank you for your kind words, and good to be with you and also your members. Just quickly, I'll go back and talk about the negotiations over this next version. Let's call it Program 4, I guess. Some people call it CARES 2. But those negotiations are ongoing between ourselves and the Speaker, Richie Neal, as well as Chuck Schumer over on the Senate side and McConnell. But overnight, I thought an important development occurred in the negotiation between the Federal Reserve and Treasury. So one of the gaps in the CARES Act was that we did focus primarily on small business, and we limited that support in large part to companies that had less than 500 employees. And then as this dilemma and the waves of unemployment occurred, we saw that medium-sized businesses and larger businesses and I've had direct conversations with some of the CEOs in my districts of some of these large companies with 2,500 employees. There are a number of them which are incredibly important. There wasn't a lot I could do for them under the PPP program, the payroll protection program, and had some conversations with Eric Rosengren, a great president over at the Boston Fed and a really thoughtful guy. So last night the Fed and Treasury got together and they've got a new lending program that they started. It's a $2.3 trillion lending facility. It's actually they've got two different programs within their agreement. One is the Main Street business program that will actually allow companies that have up to 10,000 employees and that have earnings, annual earnings up to 2.5 billion, in revenue. So that'll encapsulate those companies that I've been trying to help that weren't necessarily helped by the original version of the CARES Act. There's also within that umbrella, this is again the Federal Reserve Treasury agreement that was announced last night. They've also got a municipal liquidity program in there as well, and I'm waiting for further guidance on that. So that's really good news for us. Bob Nelson at SBA has done a wonderful job. He's attended a couple of my, my telephone town halls and my Facebook Live sessions, and he's been very helpful. Although we have been waiting for guidance on some of our programs, we push this stuff out the door so quickly. Just so people understand, Bob's book of business, under the SBA, is about it's about 24 billion, right? 24 billion. That's his usual book of business, and that's for the whole SBA. And he's got 11 employees that are working in the region. We just pushed $340 billion out to him, and gave him no new employees for the time being. But we're trying to get him plussed up in terms of new staff. But they've all, there's an educational process here. They've got these programs are brand new, so he's doing a great job scrambling to get up to speed and help our people. And he's got people like me, on him all the time to try to help us in our district. So I really do, and he's got the whole New England delegation he's got to answer to. So I really appreciate his partnership, and he's been extremely helpful on a number of cases. So that's what we got overnight. On the negotiations with the Senate and in discussions with Chuck Schumer, we are looking for much more help. We knew this was coming, right? So we did the CARES Act, but at the same time, that wasn't even out the door, and we were already meeting with the Financial Services Committee, with Maxine, and with the Speaker, with Ways and Means, and others, just to try to look at where the gaps were, right? So I know that on our side, and this is an ongoing negotiation with Mitch McConnell on their side and with the White House, but we were looking for, they're obviously looking for a plus up as well for the payroll protection program. They're also open to the idea that we have a bunch of businesses out there that were not eligible, and we need to address that. They've seen the same things we've seen. So there is I think a commonality of purpose here, thankfully. There's some differences. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. There's some differences in priorities, but on our side, we did push for a $250 billion increase in assistance to small businesses, with $125 billion channeled through community-based financial institutions. So we saw that the bigger banks were much better equipped, I would say, to help us with the PPP program, right? Because client businesses had to go to their lender that they already had a relationship, and that could be Santander, that could be Eastern Bank, that could be, or it could be Bank of America. The bigger banks, the much bigger banks, seem to be better equipped and ready for this. And I also have to say they were at the table when we put some of this together, so they sort of had a head start. But a lot of our local community-based, community banks, credit unions that serve, family businesses, women and minority, veteran-owned businesses, and in some of our rural states, some of these farming banks, these agricultural banks, they were not tied in as neatly as some of the big banks were. So we're trying to make sure that half of this $250 billion that we're advocating goes to those smaller banks, suburban and urban financial institutions around the country, trying to fix that. Because no matter who if you're a restaurant or you're a business out there, you have a relationship with that local bank in many cases. So you don't want to have to, in the midst of all this, begin a new relationship with with the mega bank. And I know that Bank of America at the outset had an obligation to take care of their existing clients, right? And so I totally understand. So we're trying to address that. We're advocating for another $100 billion for hospitals and community health centers that are really providing major resources on the front lines of this crisis, including and part of that $100 billion will be steered towards the production and distribution domestically and the acquisition from other countries for PPE, and also that national rapid testing protocol and all that we've got going on. We also, again, went back and asked for another $150 billion for state and local governments to manage the crisis, right? So we did this last time in CARES 1. The $150 billion was split up so that we made sure that I think it was $100 billion went to, I'm trying to think, $100 billion went to states, and then I think a third of it went right directly to municipalities. That's been a real tug of war. We're trying to recognize that in some places, the county government or the city government is really carrying a big part of the burden. So we're trying to make sure that not only do we help, Charlie Baker out, but we also got to help Tom Koch out down in Quincy and Bob Sullivan down in Brockton and Mayor Walsh in Boston, and make sure that they've got the resources they need. So we don't want to create a log jam or a clog in the pipeline here. We want to make sure everybody can do their thing at the same time. And then we're looking at some of the gaps that we have in the SNAP program. A lot of people now that are on unemployment, they've got no income coming in, so there's a need for SNAP benefits just to put food on the table. There's food insecurity out there, and that's growing, especially in some of these rural communities. So we push for a 15% increase for SNAP benefits, recognizing that there are problems there. And there are hiccups in the implementation of this, right? I mean, I just talked about what we're doing with SBA, and this is not going smoothly at all, but it's the nature of the thing. But we've only just passed the 10-day mark since that bill was passed, and so we're still trying to iron out the kinks. And like I said, we're going back and recognizing gaps and the miscalculation, I think, of some of the need out there. We knew unemployment would spike, but we're really seeing a much quicker escalation than some people had estimated. So it might be a better use of our time if that's just the broad strokes of what's going on right now. Okay. It might be great just to hear from the members and have them ask questions about their particular situations. That might be more helpful.
Great. I appreciate it. And that was a very good capsule update on what is going on. My only question before I hand it over to Joanne is that these new items that you're looking to get for healthcare, community health centers, state and local, SNAP, you think this is something that both sides are going to agree on? Because what you've done so far on the stimulus and the rescue package, it's unanimous. It's great. And now that you're adding these additional items, do you think this is going to be accepted on both sides of the aisle?
Yeah. So we're not looking to look. We're not. This is not a Christmas tree where you know, like sometimes in Congress, if you see a vehicle that's moving, you just hang your ornament on there and just hope for the best. That's not what we're doing here. We realize that the implementation is going to be bifurcated. There's going to be, there's going to be a situation where, we got to push out the economic support, but the nature and the networks for healthcare are much different. So the timing does not need to be, in harmony. If we get the money ready on the business end, that's going out the door. We will have a gentleman's and gentlewomen's agreement about what will go into the healthcare bill, so to speak, at a later time. But we will have a handshake agreement that, look, we're gonna do this. Let's not delay everything until we get 100% agreement on all items. You can't do that. I think that would cause an interminable delay, and each day, both the healthcare front and the financial front are, desperately needing help. So we want to get as much help on all fronts out to as many people as quickly as possible, right? Because that delay can sometimes increase the cost of getting the money out the door. It can also, in the healthcare spectrum, delay can just, build a reservoir of unmet need out there in our health centers, in our hospitals. So we time is of the essence, I guess I could say, on both these accounts, and we're not, we're not waiting to get help out the door. It'll come as long as we have the assurances from McConnell that we're going to take this stuff up and get the major agreements done. We'll worry about the details later.
Okay, Joanne.
Yes, thanks, Jim, and again, thanks to you and the New England Council for hosting these congressional roundtables in this virtual manner. I think, judging by the number of folks that are on the call, there's certainly great interest, and this, as always, is a good opportunity to hear from our members of Congress here in New England. Congressman Lynch, this is a real pleasure. Thank you for taking time to address New England Council members and your constituents, and also thanks to your staff, always accessible and helpful when we call on them. So thanks for that. Let me just look through my list of questions here. And following on the negotiations with the Senate over this latest proposal, I do want to thank you for the attention to small banks and community financial institutions. We share some overlap in membership at the Federal Home Loan Bank through New England with these, and they are certainly ready, willing, and able to assist in their communities when they can. And I think they're going through the same kinds of things that other institutions are with the guidelines and difficulties and things like that. So that's really appreciated. Thank you. For the next, this seems to be sort of a mini get the money out the door kind of thing that's happening now, but there certainly has been talk about potentially a fourth recovery or stimulus package and maybe even a fifth. Would you talk a little bit about how that might shape up, and have there been conversations on what those provisions might entail?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Joanne, and thank you for the work being done with the Federal Home Loan Bank. We really appreciate having such a great partner, and we value your input, and I'm glad we have a great dialogue and relationship between our staffers and your office.
Thank you.
It's greatly helpful, especially in times like this. We've got so many people in a tough position. Right. So we've been committal. Excuse me. We've had strong commitments about the timing of this next phase. So Steny has indicated that April 20th we would come back into session.
Sure.
So we're looking at that being the timing for phase 4, and
Okay.
I've talked about some of the things we're looking at. Now, it won't happen on the 20th. It won't. That's when we're coming in. We're still trying to wrestle with how we do a hearing and a markup and a vote on some of this stuff. So we're dealing with the logistics. I think what we're trying to do is to get a quorum. That way, if we have, as we had last time, a Republican member who wants to challenge the legitimacy of the vote, we'll have enough members there to have a quorum and to outvote that challenge to support the decision of the chair. So we think we have that figured out. It worked well last time, and we think that procedure, as you may have noticed, we spread members out so we all observe the 6 to 8 feet of distancing. We sat members. I actually sat up on the balcony of the House with some of my Republican colleague members, equally spaced, and we were able to vote to defeat the motion of the gentleman from Kentucky.
Sure.
So that process will begin, I think, on April 20th. It will not conclude. So it's very likely that might take anywhere from 3 to 10 days really to button that thing up. But we think by the beginning of May we should have phase 4 out the door. We're looking to reauthorize the state small business credit initiative. It would reauthorize, I think, about $10 billion for that program. That was initially, that was something we did back in the financial crisis. I think we did that in 2009 or 2010 to support small businesses. So it worked pretty well, and we have the benefit of having done this before. So we want to get at that. We also we want to sort of piggyback on what Treasury and the Fed are doing right now. They did this by agreement overnight, but we think we can push money out the door as well to supplement or expand the PPP, that payroll protection program, and just put more money in again to cover those mid-size and larger companies that have up to 10,000 employees. We saw that as a real gap. The Fed and Treasury last night have stepped up, but we really think we need a strong vote of Congress, to use the full faith and credit of our Federal Reserve Bank to authorize more money to be appropriated, and also as these banks, as our local banks and medium-sized banks are pushing these loans out the door, right? It counts against their capital requirements. So we got to build a facility that could actually purchase or reconcile their book of business so that they can make more loans. We don't want
yes, indeed.
We don't want
indeed.
a log jam to occur, So we want to get at that. We're going to try to figure that out. I think we've got some solutions out there I'm very optimistic about, so I think we'll be able to do that. The other thing we're worried about, and we're trying to do this in phase 4, is pandemic risk insurance. So, we're getting a lot of calls from small businesses and medium-sized businesses that are saying, hey, there's an exclusion here in my insurance for interruption of business, my insurance policy that says, I'm not covered for a pandemic. And so, we have some of our members on the far left that are saying, well, let's just make them do it, and just rather simplistic, but not realistic. solution to just make the insurance companies, like an adhesion contract, make them, meet the needs of this pandemic, and let's just, make an inclusion legislatively that now all these contracts also include a interruption of business provision for pandemic events. We can't really do that. It's not wise.
Sure.
Insurance companies have not. Look, the reason they're not in there because it's just so tough to price, and the risk assessment is really, it's beyond. It was beyond them. I mean, you can see right now how could you predict this? How could you price this in? So we think that fortunately we went through this right after the attacks on September 11th. We went to TRIA, and we figured out a way where we did put a certain level of burden on the private insurance market and said, you gotta present a product to the business community that they can afford, right? And that we know that this is tough to price, so we're going to create a government backstop so that at a certain point, if the event is so huge, the government will step in and basically exonerate you and pick up the cost thereafter once you get to that point, indemnify the private insurance industry. So that's the model. Fortunately, Maxine, who's the chair of the Financial Services Committee, doing a great job. She gets that. We went through this when we reauthorized TRIA. We also had a similar discussion over the reauthorization of flood insurance, and I was at the table on both of those because I've got the National Security Subcommittee, and I'm also on oversight, and also on transportation and financial services. So we do the insurance piece as well, and she gets that, and we've had that discussion, and so we just need to figure out where the backstop goes. What can the private sector insurance, what can they handle here? How do you find that price point that will give businesses an opportunity to purchase pandemic insurance on the market, and how do we get this implemented? So it's really we're trying to calculate where that price point, where that balance point between the private responsibility of insurance companies and where does the government come in with that backstop? How far back from home plate is that backstop where the government steps in? So it's so we have the general idea, but we do need to have that discussions. We're going to bring in all the smartest people on this and try to figure that out. But that will get done. I am
Very
certain
good.
that will get done, and it's just a matter of getting it done.
I'm very glad to hear that. I know that certainly, you can just look at one industry, the restaurants and coffee shops and, pubs and things like that. I mean, they are absolutely in a very difficult position because of the social distancing piece. So I'm very glad to hear that, not to focus just on one industry, but I'm glad to hear that those conversations are ongoing.
Yeah.
And you certainly mentioned your serving on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and one issue that's come up also, not necessarily on the fringes, but certainly right in the middle, is infrastructure and how infrastructure might play a role in recovery efforts, not just in terms of assistance, but also in terms of helping to get people back to work once the danger has passed and once things start getting a little bit more back to normal. Could you talk a little bit about conversations around infrastructure that may have taken place and how that might shape up?
Sure. Happy to do that. So when we were talking about phase 4, phase 5, I would include the T&I bill, $2 trillion, probably at least $2 trillion for infrastructure. That's an active conversation. I've got another meeting with Pete DeFazio, our chairman, later on this afternoon to go over that. I've been directed to reach out to the Massachusetts and New England delegation because think Mr. Pappas from New Hampshire is also on transportation. He's a freshman member. He and I are the only two that are on transportation. So I've been asked to sort of solicit the priority programs, the priority infrastructure programs that members have in their districts. I've also had the opportunity to sit with Governor Baker and Stephanie Pollock to talk about what they see. I'm happy to say that there is general harmony between members of Congress and the governors, even of different parties, about which projects have to move forward. So we've got some big ones out there. I know that I sat in on a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers and my friend Mr. Keating, and so from the 9th District, and talked about the Bourne and the Sagamore Bridge and how those need to get done. So that's very important, and those are big ticket items. So that's obviously one of the discussions we've had, but we're soliciting and receiving the priority projects for all the members, and we will try to make sure that everybody gets what they need. So that's a good discussion going on. There's tremendous interest from Republican members as well. Rural areas that have been trying to get broadband for a long time. I think that
exactly.
Today that is a I mean, think about it. You got these areas where college kids are being sent home to do classes online, or you do have a much greater reliance on broadband than we had in the past. It's become a critical element of infrastructure. So the speaker has indicated that needs to be in there. So we're looking at that. Rail is a big issue. We know that here in Massachusetts, our rail system is extremely important. It's one of the oldest systems in the country. So we're looking at that. The Port of Boston, we've been able to free up some money in the harbor maintenance fund to allow Lisa Whelan to have greater flexibility there in terms of her maintenance needs. We've also had some wider discussions with the Fed about how we might provide some relief. I mean, look at the number of flights. The flights are down 70% or something like that.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
And also cargo shipping has dropped probably by half right now. And as these supply chains sort of dry up, it's expected that that'll get even worse. So, we already did the big dredging piece, but we need to do more. We need to expand the capacity along the waterfront and the piers in South Boston. So there's a lot of infrastructure need out there, and I certainly see the $2 trillion bill is a major priority for everyone, including the president. So, but again, there is one caveat here, and let me just talk about more locally. So there's no sense pushing $2 trillion out there if you're telling people to stay home and not go to work. So timing is very, very important here. We do think that there's an ability, and this is all timing. So, we are in a peak season right now for coronavirus, positive cases. We're seeing a tremendous surge on our hospitals, and some of my nursing homes are in just very, very, very difficult shape. I've had a couple of nursing homes that have had over a dozen deaths, and we've got some real problems out there. But when the peak begins to subside a little bit, I do think, and I've met with and talked with building trades people and major contractors, Association of General Contractors and others, about developing a protocol, and they've come up with a a rudimentary protocol that would allow some jobs to go back to work. So, and I was an iron worker for 20 years. So when you're setting steel, structural steel, you don't have a lot of people doing that on site.
Exactly.
It's usually, you're working in a gang. A typical raising gang might have 5 people in it. You're setting, thousands of tons of steel and per day. So that type of work, of course, you got an operating engineer there in the crane, but there's a way to do that, I think, that safely on particular projects. Similarly, you got laborers and carpenters who are pouring concrete. They're not on top of each other.
Exactly.
It's really an equipment-centered process. Either it's the crane lifting the steel, or these concrete trucks coming in, and you're pouring concrete. People aren't on top of each other. So I definitely think there's ways to create a system where it would have to be job site by job site, and it have to be in coordination with OSHA and also with the Department of Public Health here in Massachusetts. But we can get some jobs back online here once things ease up a little bit. And so we're having those discussions. I talked to John Fish over at Suffolk. I talked to Lee Kennedy over at Lee Kennedy Company. I talked to John Kavanaugh, who does a lot of work. He used to own Berry Electric, but a really, really smart guy. And then I've talked to a bunch of the labor leaders across the board, Frank Callahan from the Massachusetts State Building Trades, just to try to think about how we can create a plan right now so that when we can execute, we can actually put people out on the job site. Now the governor seems to be more receptive to this right now than Mayor Walsh. However, Marty and I work together. We strap the work boots on together, and he knows of what he speaks, and so he would have to be comfortable with this, and the other mayors would have to be as well. But I think if we did it like a permit process, where a project manager developed the protocol on their job site, went into City Hall and said, "Here's my proposal. I want a permit to go back to work." They send the inspector out. They review their program. They may have to go split shifts. If you have too many people on job site, you might have to work some of them from 6 to 2 and some of them from 2 to 8. You may have to split up the workforce so that you don't get people on top of each other. We have.
It almost seems like you would have to do it in a series of phases in some way, or a series of steps to be able to make it work.
Absolutely, and would have to take advantage of these testing protocols. So we've got a blood test, we've got a pinprick test that would tell you within 15 minutes or 5 minutes whether a person's compromised or not. We got those temperature gauges that they use at the airports now. If someone's got an elevated temperature. We also, at least on the union side, they have all these apprenticeship programs where you could actually introduce a coronavirus 19, CV-19 protocol where they teach you about how to keep yourself safe. We actually can have the machines to fit. A lot of people don't realize that these masks, these N95 masks, if they're properly used, number one, you need to shave if you're a guy, and you got a beard. They're supposed to fit tight to your face, and and they should be fitted to your face. So in these apprenticeship schools, you could actually fit the individual and equip them with the necessary PPE to go out there and do their jobs. I do want to give a shout out to Procter & Gamble and Gillette. They've been terrific. They've actually supplied me with about 22,000 of those N95 masks and included razor blades. Thank you very much. To remind those individuals that they need to shave in order to get those masks to fit. I thought it was a nice touch, but Gary Combe over there at P&G, has been terrific and has helped a lot of my hospitals and a lot of my health centers out. So we're really grateful, and I think it may be public knowledge, but he's looking at producing face shields over at the South Boston plant the Gillette plant over there, and I think he's already converted the Andover plant that used to do, I think it used to do shaving cream. Now it is converted over to hand sanitizer. So huge thank
good
you
to hear. Good to hear.
P&G and Gillette and Gary for that great leadership. He's been tremendous.
Very good. Well, duly noted. Let's see. I at the last question on the formal list here, and let me just turning to your position on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Certainly, we've all been reading about the, let's see, let me use the right word here, upheaval in the Inspectors General group, and certainly this week, Acting IG for Defense Glenn Fine was let go by the President, and there's a real concern about oversight in general, in particular with the CARES Act and other recovery and stimulus bills coming down the pike. I understand that you filed some legislation to address the situation with the Inspectors General, and if you could just comment on that, that would be great.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the President, sometimes he did not play well with others. So he removed Mr. Fine, who we thought was excellent and had the respect of the Inspector General community. I deal with them a lot, because of oversight. And
sure.
They do incredible work, and they are non-political. These are folks that are just stone cold, inspectors and just great people, great Americans. They do some tough work. Stuart Bowen, who was over the Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction, just a absolutely terrific guy. John Sopko, who's was in my office a couple of weeks ago he does the same thing in Afghanistan. They've got some tough jobs, and they take it very seriously. So we were very, very disappointed that the President removed Mr. Fine, saying that he had referred some charges with respect, or referred a complaint. He referred a complaint up the chain of command because he thought it was credible. This was to do with the President's impeachment and the charges,
the whistleblower,
charges. Yeah. So,
okay.
He just did his job. He did his job.
Sure.
And so he was fired for doing his job. And just has a real chilling effect, I think, around Inspectors General. The politics aside, just not something you should be doing. So anyway, in our legislation going forward, we realize that that's a problem. The President, got rid of Fine, right, who's a professional at this, and appoints his in-house lawyer. He's got zero Inspector General ability and very little trust in that community. So, but he is close to the President, and that's all the President really cares about on this. But so we're thinking of, we've written language to put limitations on the President's removal authority, so that instead of serving at the pleasure of the President would only have the ability to remove the Inspector General for cause, and that presents a level of protection for the Inspector General, so that they aren't afraid to do their job, right? It's pretty basic. So that's something we've drafted and will be part of our bill going forward. Might be challenged, but I don't think so.
Sure.
I think that under the circumstances, the court would realize that we've had the ability to put that into legislation in the past. It just means the President would have to dream up some reason rather than saying, the guy did his job and I didn't like what he did. It would provide some more substantial protection for the Inspector General. I think it would be good for the country. We want to make sure that that this money is spent thoughtfully and efficiently and to the maximum benefit of the people of the United States. I always harken back to Harry Truman. That's how he made his bones when, he basically did a survey of defense spending around the country at the beginning of World War II, and said how, and he noted and revealed how a lot of money was being misspent, and he was extremely diligent, and he revolutionized the government contracting procedures to make sure that the money was spent to the maximum benefit of men and women in uniform. And this is sort of the same dynamic at play.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense, and certainly thank you for focusing on that. And in the midst of all of these other things that you and your colleagues are focused on, well, I know it's getting very close to 12:30, and our hour is almost up. I do want to be respectful of your time and the participants' time. Jim or Griff, I don't know if you have anything else to add to our list.
No, the only first of all, I want to thank the congressman for giving his time. I know there was a question from a community bank in his district. I don't know if you saw that, Joanne. The question was the lack of a standard promissory note. Yeah. And has impacted ability to. Yeah, he just wanted to know how you feel about suggestions. Also, the Federal Reserve would be willing to purchase notes in order to inject liquidity in the banking system.
Yeah. So early on, I was trying to explain that process so that we give greater lend. So, at the community bank, look, we've made these loans 100% government guaranteed. So we did that so that smaller banks and lenders would realize that they have zero risk, right? The old SBA loans were only 75% to 85% guaranteed, and the local bank was on the hook if that entity went under. So, now, if Jim Brett Corporation walks into the community bank and says, I need a loan on this, the community bank knows that look, no matter what Jim Brett Corporation does, I'm getting paid, right? I have zero risk on this. We structured it that way so small banks will move this product out the door, get the money out on the street, right? But they all have these lending caps, and so they would maximize their lending capacity if we allowed that to continue without relief. So that's why we are trying to structure this deal with the Fed, and I know that SBA does have a model promissory note that's out there, but we are working on that problem, and believe me, we're in harmony with our community banks and lenders. We will get that taken care of if it's not taken care of already. I know we were working on that last week, and I think we've worked on an internal agreement to satisfy that need. So hopefully, if I continue to hear problems about that, I'll get on the Fed again. But we were led to believe that situation was going to be addressed. But again, if anybody has a problem with that, you need to let me know. I've been told it's going to be fixed, and if that doesn't happen, I need to know that as well. And obviously, you're closer to the situation than I am.
Right. Well, as you were gracious enough to give us an hour, and it is 12:28. We want to thank you. We know you have other calls to make this afternoon. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank Joanne. I want to thank all the members for participating, and just wish all of you a happy Easter and a happy Passover. I don't know where I'm going to have dinner, either at the living room or the kitchen, but that's something I'm going to have to decide shortly. But I just want to thank all of you and hope that you have a very safe and a very healthy holiday.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks very much.
Joanne.
Okay.
Be safe, everybody.
Excellent.
God bless.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Congressman.
All right. Thank you very
Bye-bye
much.
now.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you.